Hey folks, AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News. I want to talk to you real quick about the difference between a single action and a double action in a handgun. Okay, you hear the terms a lot, but I do meet people who will ask about that. They don't understand, well, what's the difference between a single action and a double action? Let me show you. This is a Cimarron Arms Evil Roy single action. Has that classic single action design. And the reason it's a single action is because the trigger does a single thing. Notice, if I pull it, it doesn't cock the hammer for me. I have to manually cock the hammer. Then the trigger's single action is to release the hammer. Now, if I wanted another shot, I would have to manually cock the hammer again. This is a single action setup in this Cimarron Arms Evil Roy. Now, if I look at a Colt Python 357 Magnum, it says a double action. Now, you'll immediately notice the difference. When I pull the trigger, it starts to cock the hammer for me. That's because this trigger does two things. It does double the task. It not only releases the hammer, but it cocks it before it releases it. Watch this. Now, that's a double action. The Colt Python 357 Magnum. Now, you have to understand, you see this same thing in semi-automatics too. This is a classic 1911, the Emperor Scorpion from Sig Sauer. Now, you'll notice with this, if I pull the trigger, nothing happens. Doesn't cock the hammer. The only way the hammer can be brought back into cock position is if I do it with the slide. In other words, I rack the slide to put in a round, or if I manually bring the hammer back. Now, in this position, the trigger will do its single job and release that hammer for me so I can fire a round. All right? Now, you'll notice my hammer's still back, and that's because after that round fired, the slide came back, working the action to pick up the next round. When the slide came back, it leaves the hammer in the cock position. And that's why with the 1911, although it's a single action, you don't have to cock it every time. After that initial shot, the slide cocks it for you, but this is nonetheless a single action trigger, all right? Now, this is a double action in a semi-automatic. This is an H&K USP compact. I don't know if you can see all the holster wear on this. I've had this gun a long time. And just like with the Colt Python, when I start pulling the trigger, look at the hammer. It starts coming back because this is a double action. Watch this. You see that? The trigger brought the hammer back, number one, released it, number two, double action, all right? Now, just like we saw with the 1911, it leaves the hammer cocked because the slide came back to pick up the next round. When it did that, it placed the hammer back in the ready position for us. So we're ready to keep going now without having to cock the hammer. But folks, this is the difference between single action and double action. For me personally, I love in my revolvers a double action because if someone's coming down a hallway at me, I'm under duress, I want to be able to shoot without having to remember to cock a hammer or having to stop to cock a hammer. In semi-automatics, it doesn't make a difference to me because the semi-automatic design is such that after the initial hammer cock, the gun will keep cocking the hammer for you. So double action, single action, long as it is broad, in my opinion, all right? Folks, just helping you understand your Second Amendment.